Hi everyone, my name is Jenny and welcome back to my creative space. In today's vlog, I wanted to cover me reading e-arcs that I received from NetGalley. I recently just started an account. I wanted to go ahead and start reading the ones that have released for February already. So the two that I started is going to be the Tainted Cup and Faebound. Sorry for the glare from my window. And I just wanted to go ahead and start a vlog, just see what my thoughts about these two books are. I know both of these authors have series that have already been published. I think Robert Jackson Bennett, he has two series that are trilogies. I haven't read either of those. And then Zara El-Arifi, she also has a trilogy that I think is being completed at the end of this year or mid of this year. I've also not read her work before. So this is going to be me having my first foray with these two authors. So with the Tainted Cup, we follow Din, who is an apprentice for a well-renowned detective within the Empire. And from the beginning, he's going to the murder scene of a well-ranked officer. He is murdered, and it is great precedence. The Empire wants to know why he died and who killed him. I believe that this murder has greater implications to the Empire on a greater political scale that we obviously will find out as the story continues. I'm about 8 chapters into this story already. I don't know Robert Jackson Bennett's writing. Again, this is my first time ever reading any of his books. I don't know if Robert is a manga reader, but this story is on the surface level, has elements of Attack on Titans just within the physical area they're in. There's walls in the city, and the richer people live further in, so they have several more walls. The walls are created so that these leviathans, or they refer to them also as titans, don't come in and obviously eat up and murder all these innocent civilians. And that is a thematic of Attack on Titans. So I'm like, okay, so Robert is potentially a manga fan. And then on another surface level, the mentor or the detective, her name is Anna. She has sensory overload with her eyes, so she wears a blindfold so that she doesn't oversensitize her eyes. And who does that remind you of? Yes, Gojo. I don't know if that's going to play like a wider theme. Again, I said it's very surface level. She wears a blindfold and she's blonde. Like, okay. But I'm a big fan of both of those anime manga series. So, of course, I'm going to tie the two together when I see elements that match up. And then for the synopsis of Faebound, we follow two sisters. The main point of view that I've had so far within the first 5 chapters is Yeren, who is the older sister, and she is the colonel of the waning army. And we follow her perspective and point of view for most part, and we are introduced to her younger sister, Lettel, who is a diviner, and she's basically like a priestess who looks at prophecies, but it's a sort of practice that the elven people don't see as necessary, so she's obviously kind of just in the foreground right now, whereas the elven people really hold the military to like a higher standard, which where Yeren is. And so there's an inciting event that happens to throw Yeren and her sister out into exile, and they are Faebound. I do that because I was shocked when I read the first chapter to find out that none of these characters are Fae. Okay, one, I didn't read the synopsis. In the synopsis, it tells you that they're elven. But I just made the assumption with the title Faebound that most of these characters are going to be Fae, but they're all elven. So I think I've read the inciting factor or inciting event to what exiles Yeren and her sister. If you don't want to know, I'm going to put a spoiler here, but I'm going to talk about what I am assuming is the inciting event. And I mostly want to talk about it because I think the inciting event is a little silly. because it's kind of a rookie move. So she is Yurin in the very beginning. This is within the first 5 chapters. She basically goes out onto the battlefield. She has orders to go scout this forest area for the enemy encampment. And when they get there, there's nobody. And so she's like, okay, let's go back. But somebody in her company says like, oh, maybe we should go to the other side of the forest and see, because they might still be like on their way out. So we can catch them by surprise and ambush them or attack them or whatever. She's like, well, I usually follow orders. But then she remembers her sister's prophecy that her glory is found in the east. She was like, this guy said that they're exiting the forest east. So I'm putting 2 and 2 together, and I'm going to go find my glory. She goes to the east. She takes her whole encampment to the east, and they get ambushed by the enemy. And all 300 of her company die. And I'm like, she's a colonel. She just got promoted. So I'm making this assumption that she has some wherewithal on the battlefield. I don't know anything about military or like if colonel, I'm assuming colonel is pretty high up, and you have to have good knowledge about strategy on the battlefield. I think her going and being ambushed was kind of a rookie move. And I'm assuming this is the inciting factor. I haven't read past the chapter that they get ambushed, but like, how are you colonel and you got 300 people dead? But I guess you have to have something create the plot where they're Faebound, so there that is. Hi everyone, good morning. I'm getting ready. I have some errands to run today, and I wanted to just chat about my experience with the book so far. I just put on my cushion foundation. This is what I use. I had filmed a clip before, but I'm testing a new mic, and the whole clip that I took, the volume was terrible. So this whole video that I'm filming is on this new mic, and I'll see how I like, and you let me know how you like the sound as well. Currently, I kind of have some bad news with one of the e-arcs that I read. I'm gonna have to unfortunately DNF Faebound. Kind of long story short is that I'm not really vibing with the characterization of Erin. I just feel like there's certain parts of her character that are just not matching up for me, and other than that, I just wasn't feeling very compelled to pick it up. The first part of the narrative, I got to 10%. First part of the narrative is very military focused, and I understand that this conflict is about them trying to get this material that's under the area that the waning army has occupied. But I think that conflict at this point in the story, obviously, because I'm only 10%, I'm not that fully invested, is just not really compelling. Yeah, I just wasn't expecting that much military like chit chat in the beginning. Because for me, it was, I assumed to be more fantasy romance leaning with a heavier implication of romance. And I just didn't, for some reason, think that we were going to heavily speak about the military that Yurin is in. That plot point just wasn't interesting to me, so I wasn't compelled to pick up the book. I think that was just an indication I wasn't reading, and I'm more pushing the idea of like, if I'm not enjoying the read, I'm going to just put it down and I'm not going to continue reading it. And then also on the end of characterization with Yurin, she is the colonel of, or she gets promoted at the very beginning to colonel of the military. I assume colonel is pretty high ranking. Like, it's not number 1, but it's like up there, right? It's up there. She does her first job as colonel, and she makes such a rookie mistake. It was just shocking to me that she would make something that was obviously something that the opposing military wanted her to do. From the first like 3 or 4 chapters that we're meeting Yurin, she seems like a very, like, she takes her time to think about things. She has a logical way of mind. Like, you can't be not intelligent and unskilled and not know strategy and get up to that level. You know what I mean? Like, I would assume that she has some sort of understanding about strategy in a war setting, and she should understand that about the opposing force as well. And so that spoiler section that I spoke about, I think it just really bothered me because it just seems so opposite of like the kind of character was being set up. It just seemed like such a rookie move, and I like couldn't get over it. I really couldn't. I had to put the book down. Okay, next I have my bronzer. This is a new one that I'm trying. It's like, anyway, you're not here for makeup content. You're here to hear about my opinion on these books. So yeah, I had to put that down. I felt kind of bad to put it down because it is an e-arc, and like, this is the first time I've ever had a NetGalley because I just recently started it, and so I felt like I needed to complete this book, but I didn't want to push myself to complete it and then give Zara El Rifi a really bad rating just because I personally wasn't vibing with her characters. I do think that if you like a little bit more plot driven, you could enjoy this. Again, I only got to 10%, so you know, the characterization could pick up, but I just wasn't compelled to pick it up. So keep that in mind. Just because I DNF'd it doesn't mean that you might not enjoy it. So cream bronzer, I know. So for the Tainted Cup, basically at this point, they have Anna going out to the outer wall because they had a bunch of engineers. I think the number is like 10 engineers that basically died in the same fashion that the officer from the inner city had. And they're asking Anna to come investigate because she's the only investigator who has witnessed this form of murder with a tree bursting through somebody's body. The higher ranking investigators are like, okay, you're the person who has experienced this, so we're going to have you take a look into it before information spreads further through the city and causes panic. It's really interesting because we are seeing, understanding like the sort of world we're dealing with. For Din, he speaks about this alteration of his mind because his ability is being an engraver, and basically what an engraver is like you are able to see an event and you basically have a photographic memory of that event, and you can retell everything that you've seen and observed in a very, like, if you were recording it with a camera. The alteration is of his mind. If you become an engraver, you could lose your mind very quickly, and Din is like in his 20s, which is apparently old for an apprentice of an investigator, so he's not even somebody who's allowed to go out and do things on his own. But because the investigator that he's with, Anna, doesn't like to leave her home, and she also is blindfolded, she has Din as her apprentice perfectly because he can observe everything and tell her everything in great detail. I guess a lot of people look down on him because, again, he's this older guy. In this department, all the apprentices are young teens, and he's like this 20-year-old guy. But I think the idea of alteration in this world is really interesting. Like, Anna, because she's blindfolded, she has alterations on her fingers, and that alteration allows her to almost read books like Braille, except they don't have special books for people who are blind. She literally just fingers over the book, and she can read it that way. And since we've gone to the Outer Rim, there's like a bunch of people who've been altered in a way to make them more physically strong so they can do more physical labor for the Empire. I think there's also alterations for like more upper class and rich people for like beauty and whatever, and I think that's an interesting element to the story. Here's my palette. This is from Peri Para. So cute. It looks like one of those little honey pastries. At this point, I'm enjoying my read. And funny enough, it kind of reminds me of my experience with Justice of Kings. If you haven't read Justice of Kings, it basically follows this high-ranking justice. I think he's the most well-renowned justice in the whole empire. And he goes around and uses his authority granted to him by the king or the emperor, and he basically just is like judge, jury, and executioner for the king, because the king obviously can't go out, or the emperor can't go out and look at all these minor cases. You're following the point of view of his apprentice, who's writing this story from the future, and it turns into this sort of murder mystery, and then the murder mystery kind of has this implication further into the kingdom. It becomes more widespread with each book. The finale of that series just came out. I unfortunately haven't been able to read it because my Libby hold for the audiobook, which I really like, the audio narrator for Empire of the Wolf, fantastic. She really brings that story to life. But my Libby hold is like several months. If you have read Empire of the Wolf, you probably might enjoy this because it has that kind of fantasy political story plot and then a murder mystery. Whereas with Justice of Kings, the kind of murder mystery starts maybe like 10% into the book. Whereas this one, because I guess it's more mystery forward or murder mystery forward, the like murder happens on page 2. So I'm really glad that I'm vibing with the Tainted Cup because, you know, after finishing Assassin's Fate and just the entirety of Realm of the Elderlings, kind of closing that chapter in that series for myself, it's kind of sad. Like every book that I've been picking up since then, I've like not been vibing with, and I'm like putting them down. Here's my brow. And so I found a book that has caught my attention and that I'm interested in. I guess I'm having a book hangover. But it's just like every book that I've picked up since Assassin's Fate, I've been like pretty neutral about. And when I read, I don't want to be neutral about a story. I want to be enthused. I want to be excited. That basically was my update about those 2 reads. Kind of sad that I DNF'd a book. But you know, if you're not vibing with something, just put it down. I really don't see the point in like forcing myself to read. Especially when it's like, I'm not vibing with the main character. I'm gonna have to see her point of view the whole book. And it's like, if I don't care about her, will I really care about how she fares further into the book? I don't think so. Since it's more romance leaning, like, the real question is, am I gonna care about her romance? I know it's sapphic, and I was really interested in a sapphic fantasy romance. I no longer there. Excited to see what the people think about Zara El-Arifi's finale for the final strife. And depending on how the reception goes, like maybe I'll pick it up and try out another book from her and see how I get along with that. Faebound is not for me. And here's the thing, I didn't even get to the Fae part. I don't know if I'm a Fae girl to begin with. The only Fae book that I've read, or there's 2. Actually, there's 3. So there's Emily Wilde. Half a Soul deals with Fae. I recently read The Cruel Prince. I'm not entirely sure about the romanticization of Fae because from perspective of Cruel Prince, they seem like very scary people or creatures. I don't know how I would fall in love with a Fae because they don't really give a shit about people. This is what I use for mascara. And then I had this lash slick from Glossier. Because I have like more pointed down lashes, I feel like lash slick doesn't really hold a curl on my lashes unless they're permed. I think it's great for brows. So I, instead of not using this anymore after not liking it for mascara, or after finding this, which is better for my lashes, I repurposed it as brow gel. Anyway, I think I'm rambling, but it's because I'm trying to finish getting ready on camera for you. Never did I think that I would make YouTube videos, but also like beauty guru. this takes me back. The last thing I really enjoyed was this manga that my friend Michelle, she recommended that I read this manga, Yakuza Fiance. And I've never read a mafia Yakuza kind of romance before, or even like a mafia Yakuza story. I think the most mafia story that I've ever read was probably Greenbone Saga. I would consider that pretty mafia leaning. Oh my god, talk about an unhinged main character. I think the both of them. Basically, it's this young high school girl whose grandfather is a Yakuza. He's like the head of the Yakuza house in Osaka. Here's this blush. She randomly sees from the newspaper that she's engaged to the grandson of the Yakuza in Tokyo. And it's like a very silly setup. So I was like, oh, my Shelley is giving me a cute little high school slice of life rom-com. Here's the thing, because I referred to her to read A Sign of Affection. Talk about polar different recommendations from friends, right? She basically moves to Tokyo to go to high school there and like meet this guy who's her new fiance. Maybe this will just be a cute romance and somehow there will be like this element of the Yakuza in the background. That guy who's her fiance is unhinged. Like, he is categorically a psychopath. Yeah, of course these people in the Yakuza are gonna be like murderers, but he like tortures people for fun. It's on this fake act of being nice to the main character to just see her, like, who she is as a person. And then he like does this 180 switch where he's like, girl, you're so boring. Like, I thought you would be more fun as a Yakuza granddaughter, but you're just out here diddly-daddling in Tokyo, being top-notch student. You're kind of sad that people are talking trash about you for being involved with me. Like, where's the spice? I think you need to go home because you're boring. And she snaps, and she's like, what the hell? Like, who does this guy think he is? And she goes and does something really unhinged to just prove to him, like, you don't know who the hell I am. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so fun. Like, it definitely wasn't a story that I was expecting, but it's a story I enjoy. Like, obviously, there is this element of romance. Here's the lip gloss I used. So with Yakuza Fiance, I was thinking, like, how is the mangaka going to have me root for this guy? Because he is so unhinged. I don't know the Yakuza, so this might be normal for them, but I'm like, he's kind of sleazy. How am I going to root for him? And I just read the most recent volume, volume 6, and like, why am I kind of rooting for this guy that's very terrible, kind of red flag? Not kind of, he definitely is. I don't know, I'm compelled. I'm so compelled. And shout out to my chalet. Any other books that I've read that I want to sing praises for? If I'm having a hard time remembering, the answer's probably no. But I've been really chit-chatting as I got ready. This is my final look. See, nothing like too interesting, I don't think. There you go. There you go. Yeah, nothing too interesting. Like, this palette has the highlighter kind of blush combo in there. I had this. I think I do like this milk kind of cream stick. It's so cute and tiny. I remember back in the day that these used to be huge. I don't know what that's about. This one's a staple. I finally hit pan of it. Love a rosy beige blush. These two items, they're both mascara. Let me try both mascaras. This one is for the brows. This one is for the lashes. If you have like straight lashes that can't hold a curl, try Cleo. Try Cleo. Great brand. Love it for straight lashes. My cushion should glow. But I've been chatting a lot, and I should probably end it here and keep continuing my read to update you about the things that you're actually here for. So, good luck to me editing this later. Okay, bye. Hi everyone, I am getting ready to unwind for the night and I wanted to do a check-in. I've reached the 60% mark of the Tainted Cup and I just wanted to let you know my thoughts. Currently, I'm really enjoying my read. I think I said in a prior clip that this is reminding me of my experience with the Justice of Kings, and I am still thinking that. So far, there's been more layers to the mystery that was unraveled within the first few pages, and I don't think that it's necessarily confusing in any way. And for someone who I think this is his first, for Robert Jackson Bennett, I think this is his first mystery focused book. I think he's doing a really good job with laying the foundation of the mystery and unraveling things in due time. I think the pacing is really well done, and I don't think that the unraveling of the plot is convoluted. I think it all makes sense to what's going on with the world, and I love the world building in regards to the citizens of the empire. I think it's quite interesting. We're getting a little bit deeper into the effects of this murder on a wider scale of the politics in the world. The statement of the day is interesting because I can't think of any better word to say right now. I am very tired. If I have any other thoughts, I'll let you know, but that's my opinion now. I'm not feeling as slumpy as I was when I started this video. That's it for my check-in for now, and I'll see you later. Okay, I'm coming to give an update at the 70% mark. And oh my gosh, the anxiety that I'm feeling for the character at this point in the book is so intense. Basically, I'm not going to give any spoilers. Basically, he is doing a part of the investigation by himself. He gets in this very uncomfy situation. And the whole time, that scene is, well, all the subsequent scenes, but then, like, the very end scene of the uncomfy situation, I was like, Robert, what the hell? I don't know if I would say that I'm particularly enjoying, but I'm definitely locked in. I'm very interested to see how he's going to end. Right now, I feel like I'm at like a 4-star rating, which is really positive since I haven't been really gripped by a book in a while. So I'm very excited that I'm potentially going to have a 4-star. I am just waiting to see how this book will end. I hope we're not left on too big of a cliffhanger because I know this is a series, but it's looking really positive. I'm very interested to see how all these little things are going to pan out and what things will be tied up and what we will be left with in the sequel to deal with. Okay, that was all my update was about. Okay, I'm here to wrap up the vlog. I read 2 e-arcs, the Tainted Cup and Faebound. Unfortunately, I DNF'd Faebound, and I had said before the reasoning just being I wasn't connecting to the characters or just the writing style just wasn't working for me. I've seen a lot of people and some of my friends who've read Faebound and really enjoyed their time, so I don't think the fact that I wasn't connecting to the writing means or equates it to being a bad book. I don't think there was anything bad about it, per se. It was just the fact that I wasn't feeling compelled to pick it up, and I didn't want to continue reading the book and knowing that I wasn't connecting to the characters. I didn't potentially want that to reflect negatively on Zara El-Arifi, because it really wasn't about her skill as an author. I think it was very much about my experience as a reader. If you're okay with more a plot focused and centered story, I think Faebound could be for you. I know that there's some criticism about the final strife being a little bit slow paced in the beginning, and the pace of the final strife picks up within the 50% mark from what I've heard from other people's experience. So it just may be that Zara El-Arifi isn't for me. I would potentially like to pick up the final strife and see how that goes, because I don't know, that plot might be more centered to the type of reading that I enjoy. We'll see. I don't want to just knock her off my list just because I didn't have a good time with Faebound. I highly encourage you to pick it up and try it for yourself and see how it goes. Just because I didn't get along with the book doesn't mean that it can't be a book for you. The final update with the Tainted Cup, I completed my read yesterday, and my star rating, I think I'm going to land on a 4-star, which is very exciting because I think I had said that I was kind of falling into a reading slump, and this book was kind of the one that was really catching my attention, and I felt very engaged in the story. And indeed, the ending there gave it a 4-star. I'm actually between like a 4.5. For me, I think I'm finding that maybe I am a mystery reader. I haven't really picked up mystery-focused books. I think this is the first one that I picked up where the mystery plot was very advertised, and I'm finding that I'm really enjoying that kind of plot in a fantasy world. I think my favorite part about this story was just the character dynamic. I haven't read too many character dynamics that mirror Sherlock and Watson, so I'm not too oversaturated with that kind of story, and it really worked for me because I'm not comparing this character dynamic even to Sherlock and Watson. Like, I see the kind of reference, but I wasn't sitting there being like, oh gosh, this is a carbon copy of Sherlock and Watson. And I think, again, I probably am not that familiar with the dynamic, or familiar enough where I would see it and be kind of discouraged to read it. I feel like at the end of the book, it definitely wraps up the main mystery, but I see this overarching plot point that will be in the entire series. It's not left off on a huge cliffhanger, and I really enjoyed that. There were a lot of layers of discussion on classism and privilege that is just automatically laid in this world. As before I'd said, it is this empire that is divided in rings, and these big walls that they've built are there to keep leviathans out from coming into their cities and eating people alive. But that wasn't that big of a plot point. It was very background. So you're watching these characters dealing with this very ominous and looming threat of a potential of a murderer being just out and about, and trying to see what that potentially means for the inner walls of this city, but also having the looming factor of these leviathans who could just break through the walls and destroy most of these people's livelihoods. I feel like that must be a plot point that Robert Jackson Bennett is going to have become a bigger aspect as we get into the sequel. I'm really interested to see where that goes. I highly suggest that you pick up the Tainted Cup, give it a try, and it was just a fun time. And honestly, when I picked up this book, that was all I was asking for. Like, I didn't need something super crazy or over the top. The way Robert Jackson Bennett laid out the story and the writing and the details of the scenes I think he just did an amazing job, and I'm very interested to pick up other books from him after this reading experience. I think that if you want to read The Tainted Cup or have read The Tainted Cup and you haven't read The Justice of Kings, I highly recommend that book as a comp to this title. I wouldn't say that they're completely the same. I think The Justice of Kings means so much more on the political side, since our main characters are people who bring the law of the empire to the people in the outer world. But there is this murder mystery kind of plot that stretches out into the sequels, and I think that sort of dynamic in discovering what the bigger implications of one person's murder means to the outer world is a plot point and like a story dynamic that happens in The Tainted Cup. So if you enjoyed The Tainted Cup and want another read, definitely pick up Justice of Kings. And if you've read Justice of Kings and want something a little bit like that, a little bit more punchy and faster going and slightly less politicking, then The Tainted Cup would be the one for you. That's the conclusion of this video. I'm kind of sad that I had a DNF, but hopefully maybe I can pick up something else from Zara El-Arifi and see how I get along with that. I'm not going to discount her writing at all just because I wasn't connecting to this story. Maybe it just wasn't the type of plot and characters that I would connect to necessarily, but I do encourage you to go ahead and pick it up and give it a try. And I'm definitely happy that I got a 4-star read out of these 2 e-arcs. Other than that, I don't really have much else to say. I had a lot of fun making this video and taking you along with me during this week of reading 2 e-arcs. 2 is a stretch because I stopped at 10%, but reading my e-arcs. I hope that this encourages you to pick up both. If you've read either of the 2, I would love to hear what you thought about it in the comments below. We can chat about it. If you have any spoilers, like obviously mark the spoiler, and I would love to hear what you think. Even if it's for Faebound, I don't mind reading the spoilers for that. You can share your thoughts and opinions. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. Thank you again for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!